Hey everyone, welcome to Highest Level, the new podcast. Anthony, tell us what it's all about.
Okay, so Highest Level, we're talking about some lessons that we've learned on the back of visiting Family Reunion in Vegas, which we'll talk about, explain what that is a little bit more, and touch on ways that we can take our businesses and ourselves to the highest level. What level do we want to be operating at? Always the highest level.
So I'm Michael, I've run my estate agency business for 5 years and I've been in business for nearly 20 years. I've got a lovely wife and 3 young children, and I am really interested in learning more and more, being a learning-based individual, about how we can improve things.
Yep, so Anthony Dawson, I'm based here in lovely Pendle, covering Burnley as well. Chartered surveyor with over 25 years of experience. I've created, built, established my own property company and started doing third-party general public estate agency work over the past 2 years. Oh, and I've also got 2 little kids, 4-year-old and 6-year-old, and a darling wife.
So yeah, as Anthony said, we went out to Family Reunion in Las Vegas, which is it's a mega event, isn't it?
Yeah, it's international. I think there's chasing 20,000 agents from around the globe. It is a bit American-centric, but that, in a sense, is okay, because my personal opinion, I think Michael will agree with me on this, is that where America goes, the rest of the world follows. And I think there's a lot of lessons that they've learned, things that they've done wrong, things they've got right, that we can emulate.
Yeah, so it was a Keller Williams event. I really enjoyed it. I've come back absolutely really motivated for the rest of the year. So we're just going to cover some of the lessons we learnt over there. I think we're going to start with the things that we can perhaps be learning as individuals, or the things that we learned as individuals, referencing a couple of the people we met, old friends and some new friends as well. And then we'll talk about teams, obviously running estate agency teams, or it can be applied to any team really, I think.
And just to interject there, just in case, who's Keller Williams? Keller Williams is the biggest estate agency in the world. It is a franchise, and we're delighted to be a part of them and operating on their substantial infrastructure backbone.
And the third section we're going to cover is the lessons that we learn as business people, but equally I think that can be, in fact all of these lessons can be applied in an individual's life. We're just all about personal growth. And finally we're going to touch on the market as it stands in the UK currently in our particular areas, and give some hints and tips as to where buyers and sellers should be looking and what they should be doing currently. So stay tuned till the end for that.
Yeah, because I think it's important to touch on the hyper-local focused area in which we're operating on and talk about that, because sometimes it can be really easy to say, well, the national average is doing this and the national average is doing that, where there is a substantial weighting down in the south where houses are a lot more expensive, average salaries a lot higher, so it is more relevant, I think, in our market, what's going on here and now, live time, and what are we experiencing, problems that we're overcoming, opportunities that we're capitalising on.
Especially as in the north, interestingly, we've seen better growth in the south, and that's Savills, the big estate agency group, and they've got a research arm. They've predicted we're going to see much better growth in the south over the next 5 years as well. So the kind of consensus might be the other way around, but that's a really interesting picture which we'll perhaps dig into a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's kind of obvious. It's looking at the numbers, because mathematically, for a £1 million property to gain 5% versus a £100,000 property to gain 5%, one of those is a lot easier in terms of the actual currency number rather than the percentage. So you've got to be careful to not get your mind blown by getting baffled by percentages versus the actual numbers. So one of the key takeaways, I think, well, there was an awful lot of key takeaways, and they're all that important. You can sometimes like, which is the most important one, but one of the key ones that I took away wasn't actually in a seminar that I attended. It was one that Michael attended and explained to me. But just briefly on that, the event, as I said before, there's nearly 20,000 agents there from all over the world. There's multiple seminars going on at any one time, and sometimes it's really tricky to look at the agenda and go, I want to go to this, and then that's conflicting with that. So you do have to cherry pick, and that's why it's great to have this opportunity. Now I've got my notebook, pen, standby, because Michael's probably going to drop some more gold that missed out on to pick up on. But yeah, one of the things I personally struggle with is trying to fit everybody in. And so, Michael, to flip this back to you then, talk to me about catch-up blocks.
Yeah, so that was interestingly, that was in one of the seminars from a guy that runs a big team in the US. And he said that if he's not careful and looks after his diary effectively, he can end up getting distracted, and that takes him actually away from the task he's trying to do. So what he's implemented many years ago now is 20-minute catch-up blocks at the end of sort of every 45 minutes to an hour of activity, to mean that if Susan contacts him and he's very much focused on doing a particular task, he finishes his task and then he catches up with Susan's message or information or whatever it might be in the catch-up block. And that I find that really, really interesting as well. And that's something the team have implemented actually since I fed back to them. Because otherwise, I think the stats are if you're really, really very focused on the task, it can take you 20 minutes or 25 minutes to get back into it if you let a distraction in.
That's it. Getting that momentum and then staying with it. And what I've been doing is having a couple of times set aside every day for doing that and popping the phone on airplane, because I've never come across a dire real estate emergency that's required a 20-minute delay in response time killed a deal.
No.
Obviously we want to be available all the time, and we are, but still we need those moments to catch up and plan through some work. So another key driver for business over in the States, and again I sometimes think either they're ahead of the curve or they're more evolved than us, or we're just not maybe studying them as much as we should do. There's always a big conversation about databases, and you need to A, create it, and B, you need to do something with it. And there was some fantastic ways to garner information, to populate that database, but you've always got to have the focus on the quality and appropriate people in that database. If people really don't want to know about what's going on, things that you can do to enhance your property value upon sale by 5%, things that you can do to speed up the transaction time, things that you can pay attention to, do due diligence in an area of making sure you're surrounded by a power team. Some people might not be interested in that, and that's absolutely fine. They might be renters, and that's absolutely no problem with that at all. However, they may transition into wanting to buy a property at some point, and the choice is for them. They can go into whichever element of the database that they want to. But I think for me, I was blown away by the whole concept of this is a science. This is, for me, I think to do this justice, it's a specialist skill. It's a dedicated person, dedicated team, depending on the size of the database. I know this was born on the back of a conversation I had with Steve Litt, who was with us, who's a Keller Williams agent in South Manchester, and he went to a seminar, and the guy presenting that, he was the database guru. He just the database sang to him, leads came out, and everybody went. It's not just about doing the transactions from our side. We're delivering a service. For us, Michael, I know he's cut from the same cloth on this. It's all about making sure the client gets the right solution. Sometimes it involves us, sometimes it doesn't. I'll be honest though, it usually doesn't involve us.
But also, the chap that mentioned about the catch-up blocks, he also mentioned that he actually schedules everything. So, even catching up with his family, and so he doesn't forget people because he's so busy with work. Literally everything gets scheduled in his calendar.
So he's time blocking personal time.
Everything.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I'm going to make a note of that.
And another thing actually he started with was the what he would do in the morning is, regardless of whether it's personal or business, but he was referring to personal, he'll just take 3 really quick wins to get himself into momentum of the day. So whether that be, I don't know, going to the gym or having a healthy breakfast, and it's easy for us all to say that, don't get me wrong, but I found that to be like a really interesting one as well. Yeah,
I saw a motivational speaker who was an ex-naval commander, and he said, the most important part of the day is the first bit of the day, and the most important thing you do is make your bed. Make your bed. It's an easy win. Right, you've just set your stall out for the day. Get on with it and rack up some more W's on the board, as I call it.
They've got some pretty good clothing and stuff out there in the US, haven't they?
There was a little bit of cowboy attire behaviour,
but yeah, we had a great time. So that was kind of some of the stuff that I think we learned on a basis as individuals, which is obviously applicable not just to real estate, although the majority of what we do and talk about is property and real estate. It's applicable to anybody really.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's really underrated, undervalued, the point of just being in a room, being with like-minded, go-getting, motivated individuals who are quite happy to talk about, maybe I'm sad on this, but this is my hobby, I'm really passionate about it. I will wax lyrical into the wee hours of the morning talking about property opportunities and things like that. And one of the amazing things again I took away from it was certainly within the international community, more so as Brits, we're dealing with Keller Williams agents in Europe, and just on the back of having discussions, the light bulb was going off for me. There was opportunities that I hadn't joined the dots up over the last 6 months. Now I could have been onto these 6 months ago, but I'm onto it now, and I've now got really healthy discussions going with my clients, with agents on the ground in respective areas, and who's going to win? The client. So another win on the board. So I'm looking forward to closing some deals there.
And I guess that's one of the benefits of Keller Williams. We've met some great people now. Met Nuno and his team in Lisbon, which is amazing, dead good people.
Yeah.
Met Alfonso down in Marbella.
Can't wait to see Alfonso. Yes, so we're going to be going to the family reunion event in Spain, which is super exciting, and reconnect with people. And I think that's, again, we talk about high level. It's important to have high level connections with people. So it's not just a case of sprinting around a room, throwing business cards at people like you're chucking out free penny sweets. But spending the time, understanding the people, what motivates them. Are they in, I mean, we joke about it, don't we? Are they in our tribe? If they're in our tribe, fantastic. And it's kind of like the more people that get on the freight train, the faster it's going, the more momentum, the more ideas are coming out of it. And again, it goes back to who's benefiting? The client. We all benefit. For me, that's good business. It's kind of like, I will, any of my vendor clients that are listening to this, they will quite often hear me talk about the Venn diagram, or buyers as well, you know, what the buyer wants and what the vendor wants, and that sweet spot in the middle, the Goldilocks zone, you know, that's where good business resides, and that extends into everything. You can, you know, husband, wife, family, work, you know, finding that sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, and with these connections, it is based on not just business, but as you said, it's taking those relationships to a sort of deeper and higher level by actually connecting with people, children, family, hobby, like actually building relationships with people rather than, I watched a video actually on Instagram the other day that Simon Gates sent to me, which was rather than just ringing up all your clients every quarter, oh, how you doing, be proactive in their lives. Look at their socials, see where their families are up to, actually make meaningful contributions to people's lives. Not just because obviously you may get something off the back of it, hey, if that happens, we'll take it all day long, but it's more about the fundamentals, building the relationship.
Absolutely, and I think again, if you can find that, again going back to the sweet spot in the Venn diagrams, I'm very passionate about barbecue, whiskey and red wine, so I see myself doing some, I'm really looking forward to putting on a charity raising barbecue this summer. Everyone's invited, and also a whiskey tasting experience, wine tasting, and that's not just a way of creating business, but also as a thank you back, because we do rely heavily, and not just rely on it heavily because we have to, but I think there's a choice there. I would much rather work with someone who is known to me by extension of another person who is a good guy, or lady, whatever the PC phraseology is, but a person says, I've worked with Anthony, he's a great guy, you should have a conversation, connect up with him, see where the conversation goes, and then by extension, they're kind of, one would hope, they're part of, and I'll go back to it again, you know, part of my tribe, the people where we're all working together. Because again, and I know Michael will agree with me, I see it very much as a collaboration, the marketing journey, we've both got to be on the same page, me as the agent, the vendor, and then also it comes into the conversation when I'm reporting offers back, because we're all handcuffed to each other for 3 or 4 months potentially, maybe even longer depending on the complexities of the acquisition. If we can't all, it sounds a little bit daft, but if we all can't get along or problem solve together and collaborate being a key word at every single facet of what we do, then it's probably not going to stand the test of time, and that's where you can see people do a tendency for a quick deal or an easy deal. Well, unfortunately, there are no shortcuts. Due diligence always prevails.
Yeah, and when it does come down to it, the best results always come from the clients that are best fit and that we're best fit for. And as you say, it's definitely a collaboration. Well, it's like anything in life, isn't it? Yeah. Any kind of relationship you have, if it's not quite fitting together properly, well, of course, at some point there'll be a fracture, and it will never deliver the best result in terms of a personal relationship or a business relationship. So yeah, I think that's absolutely important. But also reconnected with old friends. We met a number of people that we know already. Yeah. Patrice from California, Erin from New York, people that we've I guess this is the craziness of the world that we live in. I first met Patrice in Lyon in 2020. I've not seen it in person since, and we're great friends. We do a lot of masterminding together, and that really just blows my mind. But that shows you the fundamentals of relationship building with people.
Yeah, and I think it goes deeper. We're the Keller Williams. We talk about it about being in culture, and one would hope we are all in the same tribe. So to pick up, drop off with people we've not spoken to for a while, it's really easy. And also, usually, we have spoken to them fairly recently because of social media interactions, referrals pinging over, or just queries about, how's it going on in your marketplace? Because that's the beauty of a database. Everyone can go in it. You can have friends and family in it because they'll be interested in components of what you do, but also fellow agents. And there's many choices of franchises and estate agents or realtors to be part of. But I think the key point for me is I'll collaborate with anybody who wants to collaborate with me. It's not what badge are you wearing? Michael, have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, I was just thinking more of walking into the room, really, with all those, thousands and thousands of people. Normally, I'd personally have some trepidation about that. And it is, some people say it's cheesy and whatnot, but it's absolutely true. It feels like a family, 100% does. Like obviously you and I have built a friendship from getting to know each other through this. And I feel no trepidation in the rooms whatsoever because everyone is largely cut from the same cloth, has the same culture, shares the same values, which absolutely blows my mind. But again, that's important because that's what we're trying to cultivate within our own businesses as well.
And then, you could argue from that as an individual agents, that leads us nicely into cultivating teams, expanding, and then growing our respective practices. But it's interesting because, as I say then about our respective practices, so we've got neighbouring patches, if you will, but there's always ways you can expand. There's always even geographical limitations. There's an awful lot of chimney pots in each and every postcode. So there's always opportunities to take it to, I'm going to be cheesy now, take it to the next level, which is the highest level.
Yeah, 100%.
So on the topic of team, Michael, I know you've got an established team. What was some of your key takeaways, some light bulb moments, your ahas?
Yeah, so a lot of my focus was on the team sessions. As Anthony said at the beginning, everyone that, because I think was there 14 people in total from the UK that went 10 to 14.
I think something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and everyone kind of did different sessions so we can all come back together and then feedback things we might have missed out. So one of the things that I learned is about celebrating everything. The stories behind all of the wins that you have, whether it be a lot, something fantastic for everyone, like a completion or a good conversation, or really create that culture of celebration because that can help keep a team together cohesively. To be honest, it's not something I'm brilliant at, so I'm glad I learned that lesson because I'm a bit more celebrate for a very short time and then kind of on to the next person that needs my help. But that was certainly something that was a massive light bulb moment for me in one of the team sessions.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about it. Everyone's at different stages in their personal journey and business journey, and something like that, you can cherry pick what's right for you. And quite typically, I think the 14 or so British agents that went out, or UK agents that went out there, it was only once or twice you bump into the same, someone from the UK in your seminar because they were off doubling down on something they either wanted to get exponentially better at, or something to learn more about. Things like AI and where that's going at the moment is just absolutely crazy. But I think in the same way that you went focused on trying to get more valuable knowledge to add value to your team, one of the key things I was very interested in was the whole topic of luxury, and it was really, really insightful. So here, I'll go back a step. So in America, there is a subdivision, I think that's the right phraseology, which is the luxury brand. And that is people together within a branded luxury community looking after luxury properties. But here's the key thing, delivering a luxury service, really the highest level. And what do we mean by the highest level? You look at a service that you can deliver, or this is the way I attack it, and I see Michael in action, I know he's the same as. what's the service I need to deliver? Right, what is the highest that I can possibly do to that? And constantly dissecting that and looking at, I can enhance this and I can tweak that. So that is formally underway, operational in America, and going great guns. And there's a lot of people benefiting from buying and selling their properties underneath that umbrella and framework. Here in the UK, Dominic Marcel, he's now championing bringing that to this country. So there are 10 agents that have been that are part of that team to really take that to the next level, cultivate that, build that, and focus it where it's right for the UK market, because there are nuances. Buyer's agent in America, very commonplace. Occasionally pops up here. It's something I incorporate within my my service offering, because I see that as the highest level of operating and looking after. Because if I'm selling somebody's house, hey, let me help you find something to buy as well. Or if you found the property, let me help negotiate that down. But going back to the luxury topic, so we've got Caroline and Brady who head that up in America, and it just so insightful and ways to really engineer added value to the service, looking after the customers, but then also to how to echo that back, and here we go, how it's all linked, echo it back to teams, echo it back to our offices. So in the, it's probably worth touching on as well actually, so in the UK there are 3 market centres, so they're I suppose you describe them as 3 heads, or think of it like 3 counties, and you're in a county, you operate within that again, I'll go back to the other analogy of that tribe. So the luxury topic area is a way for us as nominated agents to echo back some of those learning points to help everybody elevate their game. So raising the bar and helping everybody get to their highest level, which by extension means that the whole industry improves, which again goes back to the customer wins.
And there were some very simple things that were said in a few of those sessions. I didn't go to as many as you went to a couple, but one thing which really resonated with me is that luxury isn't a price point, it's an experience, which whether you're selling super luxury, mid-level, it doesn't matter the price of the property you're selling. I think everyone should be looking to create those wow moments, and most of the time they're just little marginal gains, which means a lot to people.
Yeah, and it's like the pro cyclist. It's the aggregation of all these little marginal gains.
Oh, that's what I like. Yeah, Dave Brailsford and British cycling. I think that it was up until 1971 they hadn't won a world championship medal or something like that, and then maybe later than that, and then from 2000 whatever until 2012 they won an absolute ton of medals, 3 Tour de France's from marginal gains. Yeah,
it's all about the marginal gains. Absolutely.
And it's really important to explain that to the team, because there's just small little wins that can be put in place which don't really require more effort.
Yeah.
Where you can give what was described, I think, white glove service.
Yeah.
Almost like a butler.
Yeah. I like that.
Service.
I like that phraseology. Caroline, one of the things she said is, luxury is blind. So it's not a case of a price point. We can deliver a luxury service for anything we do, and I certainly pride myself on that and look at ways that I can enhance that. I do open days, for example, and I love the detail. For me, it's all about the detail. And again, it seems a little bit cheesy, but just like a little reminder that this water was brought to you in conjunction with Anthony Dawson Real Estate. But
it's a touch.
It's a touch. But here's the thing as well. For me, I think it's a little bit of fun. Buying property is one of the most, or selling property, it's one of the most stressful things we can do in our life. Yeah. If you're working with someone in your team that's introducing a little bit of levity whilst being a professional and taking out the speed bumps and making it as smooth as possible, again, isn't that what we should be trying to deliver for our clients?
Well, one of the people I think that does that best is Steve. Steve has fantastic relationships with all of his clients, very personable, very jovial. Has a great relationship, which because obviously we talk frequently to a lot of different agents in the UK and beyond, and Steve does that wonderfully, I think.
And I think he's an example of getting that database raw material correct. It's not about having 20,000 people in your database and they're just people that kind of you've data collected off a website saying, well, if you want to inquire about this property, I need your email and inside leg measurement. That's not relevant. Steve has a small core of people And again, they touched on this with luxury. You know, have your 10. I think they referred to it as the 10 go to a meal with people, and those are the guys that you're really looking after. And again, you're looking after them because you actually, it sounds strange, you enjoy working with them, spending time with them, and offering solutions, ideally to problems before they've gained any traction or mass. You know, pick up the snowball before we're dealing with an avalanche. And again, that goes back to the credibility and the knowledge base within the team. You know, working with people that are experienced. I lean heavily on my chartered surveying background. You know, I kind of, again, I find it a little bit fun when a surveyor has come in to do a report to represent a buyer, and they're looking for things to get that price down. And sometimes they find things, and that's okay, that's fine, and they become a talking point. But when people start embellishing, shall we say, then that's where I can step in and say, well, actually, hang on, here we go. Let's talk. Let's keep it in the realm of fact, not fantasy. I don't. You've probably found something similar to that yourself, Michael.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, but again, it's like anything. There's always going to be buyers like that. But I think it's about being cute and protecting the best interests of our client. But a lot of this stuff also is applicable to individuals, I think, because they talk about, you know, most of the time you have 5 to 10 real friends in your life, like proper. What's the word I'm looking for? Proper go-to people.
Forever friends.
Forever friends, yeah. Ride or dies, I think, is the phrase. Right. But I think that's important as well, because you don't want to spend time putting into relationships which aren't really what you want. You want people that are going to be there to support you, back you up, build you up, and take you to a higher level. And
I think that ties in nicely with the whole point of, for me, you want a really good toolbox. You want lots of quality tools in the toolbox. I absolutely love hunting down, tracking, finding someone that we can do a deal with, and then there's the whole thrill of the deal, and looking after my client's interest, whilst making sure that everyone is getting the deal that they want. You know, greed is the enemy, and you can see that on both sides of the transaction. So very occasionally, you know, we have to act as mediators, referees, sometimes counsellors, but that's a different podcast. But I think where I'm going with that is because I'm enjoy and focus on that, that's why it's important for me to have key team members behind me, which are more back office, less front facing occasionally, and because I know with your team you've got a few people that are customer facing. With myself, it's you buy into Anthony, you get Anthony, and it's kind of the tip of the pyramid with the back office people that are keeping me moving fast and operating at optimum at the bit I excel in.
You kind of jested about a counsel, but honestly, for me, a good agent wears a multitude of hats at any given time. I
use this analogy a lot. I'm like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
As is anyone who's successful, experienced, and got the track record. It's just, who do I? It's just strange actually. It's nearly like who's that character from the 80s? Is it Uncle Ben or something? Not Uncle Ben, Mr. Ben. You put different costumes on. Who do I need to be today? You know, what is it that I can help you with? Oh, you know, catastrophe. We were talking. In fact, one of our colleagues, Rose, she was dealing with a completion and had a catastrophic leak failure. Someone's full of the joys of life, getting the keys to go into the property, catastrophe, ceilings down, leak, disaster, and the rallying around with fellow agents that they didn't have a financial interest in the transaction, but they had, I would say, an emotional interest in supporting their fellow person, their fellow agent, and it was wonderful to see that collaboration there and being part of that really healthy, thriving, forward-moving community. And then by extension, you then get things like, we've got some active referrals ongoing at the minute. Yeah. So Michael's got some clients that I'm more placed to deal with, so I'm looking after them. And Michael's, you know, I don't even need the update. I've got complete confidence in you, and it goes two ways. Michael's reciprocating. You know, I can focus on my thing that I'm good at and I want to do more of, safe in the knowledge that, again, part of a network where it's being looked after.
And then from the keynote, so that was a lady called Jamie Kerr, runs a huge, or did run, I think, until she sold out, a huge cosmetics company. And these lessons are applicable to business, but life in general. She told this crazy story of how many times she got turned down by various companies before she actually managed to get a deal done to get herself launched. So I think they were doing some very low level internet sales. She got turned down by this company, and I'm not talking 5, I'm talking 20, 30, 40, 50, like a huge number.
It was yeah, the number was crushing.
Yeah.
But not only was the number crushing, some of the feedback was just, it would destroy a typical mortal mind, but just in the face of utter adversity, she just absolutely excelled. She was just relentless, just kept going. And I love that, because it's part of I hope to aspire to this of, does not understand what, no, this isn't for you. That when you're met with that roadblock, saying, well, I don't understand it, so I'm going to keep doing my thing.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing when you do a bit of a dissection or a forensic on certain people's situation. They quit, and they were so close. Many years ago when I was a much more sprightly younger figure, I used to do ultramarathons and things like that. And I used to call it yo-yoing with people, because I'd be faster on the downhills, like I had a bit more momentum than perhaps. But then on the uphills, they seemed to manage to get past. They must have been more aerodynamic or something. Anyway, the point was, so I'd be yo-yoing with people, and they looked fine and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, I'd get into a checkpoint, and they'd be there, and they'd be walking around. I'm like, oh my God, while I'm just rehydrating. Like, what happened? What went wrong for you? And they would say, oh, nothing. No, I just I just quit. And it blew my mind, because there didn't seem to me like a physical impairment. It was just a mindset thing. That kind of like, it got really tough when I quit, and I'm like, you've done 2/3, 3/4 of this whole thing, and you actually kind of chose to quit. It's interesting, it's not for everybody, but I like the perseverance story that the keynote speaker delivered.
Yeah, well, she was talking a lot about, obviously, resilience, as you've just said. A couple of notes I made. Make no or rejection your best friend. Mm-hmm. And every no is a step closer to a yes, which I absolutely love, and I think that's 100% true. I spoke to a chap once, I can't remember what he did, but he was buying a house through us, and I think he worked for British Gas, and he was selling policies on the phone, and he would literally get, I think, one agreed from every 450 calls, which sounds dreadful, but he kept going. And he made a very successful career out of that, because he just didn't take no for an answer. He did, obviously, but I mean, it wouldn't stop him then going again and making the next call, and in this case, presenting to the next cosmetics company. And
I think a good semi-local example of that is Merce. Again, he's one of the Keller agents. I'm hopefully I can recount the story now accurately, but I'm pretty sure he counts the no's, because the no's is what bringing you to the yes. Don't count the yeses, count the no's, because the more no's you get, the quicker you get to a yes. So hopefully I've, as I say, explained that story effectively.
Well, I think similarly, one of the other things that Jamie Kerr was saying is the more failures you have, the closer to success you are. So it isn't necessarily getting a no, but you set out to do something in a particular way, it doesn't quite work out.
Patrice was saying that, you fail your way to success, which I think is another Kellerism, but it's so true. And I've often reflected and thought, you learn more from the things you get wrong than the things you accidentally get right. If you accidentally get it right this time, there's no guarantee for next time. But you get it wrong, you've learned a lesson, you should be getting it right thereafter.
And two other things she said that she rounded off her keynote with was, just make sure you stay true to your values, applicable to business and individuals, and always be authentic. That's an important one.
Yeah, very, very key.
Yeah. So just to round off then, how is the market doing in Preston? Well, there has been certainly Rightmove data shows from the 1st of December to the 28th of January, sales are up year on year 23% in that time, which is really interesting. I think that we are going to see transaction levels grow. I've spoken to a lot of people in the last few weeks that seem to think that this year's not a good one, but last year was actually far better than average. And this year already is better than that again. So there's a bit of a misconception out there about that. There's all different types of buys. For Preston specifically, we're seeing people moving from the more expensive metropolitan areas, particularly Manchester, especially since work from home and the road links that we've got and everything else. And in the northwest, as I said right back at the beginning, Savills are predicting we're probably going to see 25% growth in the northwest over the next 5 years. That they're normally about right. I think last time they predicted 25, we've got 22. But overall, it's it's a pretty good time to be looking. Transaction levels are up, which obviously means there's plenty of buyers out there. There is, of course, stronger competition amongst sellers because there's more properties on the market now than perhaps last year. But as a general picture, I think it's really good. I think Halifax have reduced their rates today.
All right.
And there's a few other lenders that are going to follow suit. And of course, I think we'll probably see the base rate reduced throughout the rest of the year a couple of times, potentially. Don't have a crystal ball, but a couple of times, which just adds more confidence into the market. So generally, it's pretty good out there right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think relating that to Pendle, certainly after Christmas, we had a hive of activity on the curiosity side. A lot of people curious about what's going on, what should we be doing. And then we had a bit of a lull of activity because people were prepping the houses. We were working with a number of people, and we also work with, we've got a contact, Amanda, who helps with staging properties. We're just working on some really exciting stuff with her at the moment. And then we saw more properties coming to the market, which, yes, it is a buyer's market. There is a lot of supply out there. But it means if you're a buyer, you've got a fantastic menu to go at. There's some really good opportunities out there. And as well, with people that have had the listings on for a few months now, they're starting to look at ways that they might be able to make theirs stand out amongst others. We're working with a client, and they're saying, you know what, we'll include, because the stamp duty threshold, as we know, at the end of the month, that's going to go up. What they're saying is, not only are they going to cover the stamp duty increase, they're just going to cover the whole stamp duty bill. And what's really intuitive about that, which is something I really, really like, is the fact that obviously with stamp duty, you can't roll it into the mortgage. That's something you've got to find out of your own personal cash flow in order to buy a property. My personal view is, I'm sure Michael will agree on me, this is something that really holds the UK market back. I think there's only maybe one or two countries in the world that do this, and there's high-level advisors in other countries. I know there's chief economists in Canada and America specifically said to the British government, you've got to get rid of the stamp duty. It's inhibiting the entire your entire housing market. But seems to be falling on deaf ears at the minute. But I thought it was really good that we could create a solution to take down a speed bump for interest and get some offers, and we'll get them into their next exciting chapter. So just to touch on the concept of the buyer's market, that is when the supply outweighs the demand statistically. However, if you've got more of a passive agent, then that can become more of a problem. If you've got a more proactive agent who has the information, who's got the finger on the pulse, basically, it's certainly a conversation point, but it's all about getting the right deal for the right people and making sure the right values are in the right places for their clients. So we talk about the differences between the UK market and the American market. One interesting thing is, whereas we would typically lock a rate in for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 1 year even, and then it reverts to the in-house variable rate, which is enough to make a glass eye cry, really. In America, they do it differently, so you can actually get a fantastic rate for 30, 35, 40 years, and that's it. And what's really interesting, without wanting to bore you with what's going on in America, is that you can then end up semi-stuck, and I say semi-stuck, in a property, because you can see the financial benefit of staying put, keeping that, because that mortgage is low until it is paid off, which I think we're going to see, and it's probably happening already, an increase in the amount of rental properties that come to the market over there, which again is in stark contrast to the British market, where landlords are saying, you know what, this many rules, this much taxation, and just a non-collaborative approach from the government, I'm out, I'm selling the properties. And we're seeing it certainly around here, where there's a lot more ex-rental properties coming to the market when people of a certain age are just getting to that, 50, 60 years old, and they're saying, I'm out. Even 40-year-olds, I've got contemporaries, and they're saying, you know what, it's just the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I'm sure you've seen that quite a
Yeah, we've seen in Preston more rental properties being sold than I've ever seen, probably in the time I've worked in Preston since 2012, the most ever, which is kind of ironic, because it's actually doing the rules and the taxation are being so punitive, are actually pushing landlords out of the market, which again creates a supply and demand issue, which rents goes up. So in fact, it's in my view, no matter what your political persuasion, it's an absolute flawed policy.
Yeah, very much so. We're seeing people that are, unable to afford housing, then the pressure goes back to the government to provide social housing, which they don't have. There's people living in hotels, so they've taken a problem that was here and they've just moved it somewhere else, and it's even more of a cost. So the tax burden goes up. So and that partly being reason why the stamp duty is going up. Never mind the fact we should be abolishing it completely. They're actually putting these things up, and we see that throughout the economy, don't we? The broader tax spectrum seems to be like, where can we increase? Where can we get more money? Which isn't. I don't think it's conducive to growing an economy. I think where Dubai had the master stroke was saying, hey, come here, you won't pay taxes. What happened? The best in class, the highest level professionals, the big ticket guys with the biggest incomes, well, we'll just operate from there then. And look what happened to Dubai. You can see photos of it from, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, and it's just literally desert.
We've got some connections out there, so we better get out there.
Absolutely, let's go. Let's get the private jet.
Did you say EasyJet? So that rounds up episode 1 of Highest Level. We're going to be having plenty of special guests come on. It's not going to be us every week, because although Anthony and I are very interesting people, that would probably get a little bit boring. So going to have guests from inside Keller, guests from industry, guests from business, sports people, former sports people, just people we feel that operate at a highest level or the highest level that can bring value to you guys.
Absolutely. And if you think there's a topic that you think we could, I don't want to say dumb down, but explain in an appropriate layman's manner or whatever, dissect up, or just get our thoughts on, do leave a message in the comments.
Yeah, thanks ever so much.
Thank you.